knows?
We don't want to know!
We're dedicated, yes.
To our favorite shows!
Oh, my circuit!
Everybody loves Hypnotoad!
Scary dog!
Pearson at Blurnsville!
Futurama!
Good evening. You are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting Premier Podcast TV party tonight. I'm your host, the mandated reporter, and frankly, I'm mortified, Mr. Mark Radulich. And tonight, we are continuing our look at the HBO MAX exclusive collection of Looney Tunes shorts. They are calling this one Season 1C, and they all dropped on January 21st of 2021. These are shorts 12 ABC through 21 A and B. So that's what we are going to discuss tonight. Of course, I am joined by the queen of animation herself, ladies and gentlemen, from Honeysuckle Rose Creations, Alexis Hejna. How do you do, madam?
What's up, Doc?
Indeed.
I'm pretty sure when we previously reviewed the earlier season of Looney Tunes, I'm pretty sure I opened the show the exact same way. So let's just strive for a little continuity.
Yes, consistency is the lifeblood of everything. Anyway, so I'm sure in the first review we talked about our history with Looney Tunes. We don't need to go back through all that again. People can check that out in the archives. We just did it a few months ago, so shouldn't be too far back.
You'll hear me talk about how my parents regret the day that they let me start watching Looney Tunes because now I'm addicted, and they just kind of roll their eyes and go, my God, what did we unleash? And my father has a Marvin the Martian tattoo in my honor.
Yes. We ended up, for the most part, liking it. We talked about, I laughed. I laughed harder at this collection of shorts than I did at the first collection, and none of these made me walk out of the room because it was too gross. So I can already tell you right now, Season 1C, a vast improvement over Season 1A. And if you're wondering, wait, what the hell happened to B? Season 1B is a quick collection of shorts they did for that they called Bugs Bunny's 24 Karat Holiday Special, which came out on December 3rd. It has Elf Help, Yuletide Taz, Holiday Purchase, Ho Ho Go, and Snow Laughing Matter. I didn't watch it. Alexis didn't watch it. My kids did. They thought it was funny. Yeah. That's Season 1B. This is Season 1C, and it opens with Daffy, which is Porky opens up his own coffee shop, and he has no customers for a while, and then one walks in and says, if you make me the perfect cup of coffee, I will tell all my friends, and you'll be rich beyond your wildest dreams. And, of course, his barista that he has working in the back is Daffy Duck. And weirdly enough, this had the potential to be gross, and at times I thought it was going in that direction, but they kept it relatively not gross, and I actually laughed pretty hard at this. What did you think of Daffy?
It was pretty good. One of the things I've noticed, and we'll talk about this more as we go through the rest of the episodes, is that Season 1C really picked up a lot of design and story elements from previous Looney Tunes shorts. There were a lot of things I noticed that one of the complaints we had about 1A was that some of the designs, it felt like there was no consistency, no real basis for how they were going to draw the characters, especially human characters who were making one-time appearances. They were kind of all over the place, and we felt that there just wasn't, well, obviously you don't want like massive control in Looney Tunes. You want just some level of, okay, a human is going to look like this, someone is going to look like this, just make it a little bit easier. This one, again, I noticed they started taking more influence from other shorts for their character designs. The influential customer is based off of a design from an early Tex Avery cartoon called Paging Miss Glory, down to the dress and the hair exactly.
That's interesting. The other thing I noticed, and this sort of alternates between Snipple Animation and Yowza, which I know we talked about them in the previous installment. I didn't see a lot of the gross close-up shots. We talked about, like, that was a style that they did in Ren and Stimpy, and they did some of that in the first set of Looney Tunes shorts. I didn't see it too much this time around.
Yeah, they really cut down on those.
So this one was a funny one. At the end of it, he ends up making her the cup of coffee, and for whatever it's this was weird because it's like he destroys the entire back area, he destroys the coffee machine, and like the coffee cup in and of itself is like gears and all kinds of shrapnel and things in there, and she drinks it anyway and thinks it's delicious. So, huh?
I also really like that they kept this a bit more timeless by having her being an influential customer, and the fact that she's very rich and she has powerful friends. If this was made with more modern sensibilities, this probably would have been an Instagram influencer who walked in saying, like, I've got like 300,000 followers on Instagram, and if you make this, I'll make sure to recommend it online, or some crap like that.
Yeah. The mid short was moving hole. While chasing bugs, Elmer comes across a portable hole. This short was first released in the Bugs Bunny 80th anniversary collection. It was fine. I mean, the little midway shorts that they do, are very visual gags, and that's about it.
We don't have to talk too much about the midway shorts. They are short shorts. They are maybe 2 jokes at most. And when it comes to portable holes, no one's going to top what Eddie Valiant did with it.
12C in this first collection, Kitty Livin'. Sylvester finally is able to capture and eat Tweety. But Tweety doesn't die. Tweety essentially turns Sylvester's stomach into a 1-bedroom apartment. He throws a party. There's all kinds of things. My son thought this was fucking hysterical. Like, Sylvester having stomach aches because Tweety is doing all kinds of things inside of his stomach to him, and was just like, I was laughing pretty hard too, but my son, I don't think I was ever laughed this hard in his life. I thought he was going to shit his pants.
It is pretty good. Tweety decides to start a fire, and he immediately puts his hands on Sylvester's ribs, and I think everyone who watches it collectively grabbed their sides going, oh crap!
The thing that we thought was the funniest was when Sylvester was like, what's going on in there? And he like sticks his head inside out of his body.
Yeah.
And then Granny shows up, and then they pull back, and you see Granny's body like halfway inside Sylvester's body. The image itself was priceless.
I'm also glad that this is a cartoon that they really could have gone super gross, super fast, and they managed to find a really good... I mean, just the idea of Sylvester kind of putting his own head inside his body so he can party with Tweety, and Granny doing the same. Again, this could have been really disgusting.
Yeah, and it does bear repeating. I don't know how long ago these were developed and produced, or if they got feedback from somebody and were like, less gross, and then change tracks, or they just naturally transitioned out of it. I don't know, but like I said, they really seem to have found a good middle ground with presenting stuff that's out there and funny without crossing into gross territory. 13A, Chain Gangsters. I have been waiting for Rocky and Muggsy to show up, and this one was like, this was a classic Rocky and Muggsy. Like they've done this before. This this idea of Rocky and Muggsy being chained to Bugs, and and of course Bugs doing things to them to the point where they'd rather be in prison because they don't want to be tortured by Bugs Bunny anymore. But like, this was kind of an updated take on that, and I really thought this was funny as hell.
Absolutely. It very much so is in the vein of the classic Bugs and Thugs, where it's like, all right, Rabbit, where's Rocky? Where is he hiding? He's on the stove. Oh, he's hiding in the stove, eh? When I turn on the gas, if my friend Rocky was in there, you might, Rabbit, you might. Wow, my Irish accent is all over the place.
You might, Rabbit, you might.
Well, would I throw a lighted match in there if he was in there? Oh, no, you don't. Take me with you. Don't leave me with that screwy rabbit.
Right.
It's such a great cartoon. And yes, this is what we want to see more. Obviously, we're going to enjoy our classic Looney Tunes characters getting into new situations, but I am so happy to see them bring back some other characters. This is what we want. We want Rocky and Muggsy. We want like Hippity Hopper. We want Sylvester Jr. We want, Foghorn Leghorn and Henry Hawk. There's such a huge library of supporting Looney Tunes characters, and we want them to be brought back. They don't have to be, put into every single short, but bringing back them in these new shorts really is going to make a lot of people happy.
The next one is Sylvester Cat Jacklift. Sylvester is hungry for something while he takes a walk, and as he found Tweety, raised his neck like a jacklift. But Tweety says his shoes are untied even though he has none, and the shoes, which in reality are dynamite, blow up in his face. I don't know why, but this one also had my son and I just tearing up, laughing hysterically.
This one didn't make me laugh. My only complaint is there is a later short that starts out literally the exact same way. I think it's Cherry Picker. I could be wrong. Where it starts out with him walking and the single feather falling down. It's clear they reused the animation. I would have preferred it if they had started them in a slightly different way so it wasn't so obvious. But you know what? That's a nitpick.
Yeah. 13C is Falling for It. Daffy Duck convinces Porky Pig to go skydiving but forgets one important little thing. I barely remember this, dude. I know, the premise is Porky's too scared to jump out of the plane, and I think the gag is they don't have a parachute. But beyond that, I don't remember what even happened in this one.
Yeah, it's okay. Strange as it sounds, this one relies a little bit too much on tell, don't show, because Daffy opens it up, and it's Daffy basically narrating everything that happens as they keep falling. And it would have been funnier if when you flipped open the parachute bags, we just saw that there was no parachute. We didn't have to hear Daffy go, no parachute.
Yeah. So the big news going into this season was this was going to be our first time seeing Taz. That was in all the stills that came out, and all the articles about this dropping when it did. The big, that was what was the big topic of discussion was, Bugs Bunny faces off against Taz. So the cartoon is called Taziator, 14A, and Bugs Bunny, it's the classic gag of Bugs Bunny is tunneling and he's trying to get somewhere and he didn't make that left turn at Albuquerque and instead ended up God knows where. And in this particular case, he ended up in the Roman Empire. Specifically, he dug himself into the Roman Colosseum where the gladiator du jour, the big gladiator, the head gladiator, is of course Taz. And
well, Taz isn't really the gladiator. He's more replacing the lions. It's
sure.
more obviously in classic gladiator days, they would get monsters from all four corners of the empire to face off against their fighters, slaves, whoever drew the short straw that day. So I kind of look at it just more as okay, I'm bored. Someone go feed them to Taz. But this was really great. There's a classic Looney Tunes short called Roman Legion Hair, which I love, but it's got Sam, Yosemite Sam, looking for a victim to throw to the lions, and he comes across Bugs. And so this one updates it a little bit. Instead of Yosemite Sam, we got Taz, and it is hilarious, and I love it. This was actually probably the one that I laughed the hardest at.
Yeah, I remember laughing at this one and really enjoying it. Did you ever watch the Taz cartoon? Come to Tasmania, come to Tasmania. We mean you.
Oh my God, all the frickin' time. Topsy meets Turvy and starts to spin, and like a Tasmanian devil at his closest can. Down to Tasmania, come to Tasmania. Yeah, thank you, Jess Harnell, for proving that I am not the worst person for doing an Australian accent. And I say that with Jess Harnell, you rock.
I know Taz was, people got tattoos of Taz. There was a period in American culture where Taz was the most famous cartoon character ever. And that's when he got his own show. And I remember, Taz wasn't always my favorite Looney Tune, and I was too old for the Taz craze. But I watched that show, because that show itself was... And Taz wasn't even the best part of it. The other characters on the show around Taz were funny as hell.
I just always love the story of how they came up with him. The writers were in the room trying to think of a new opponent for Bugs, and they're like, we've had him go up against this and this and this. And someone literally said, he's gone up against everything except a Tasmanian devil. And the writers just all kind of looked at each other and were like, well, okay then. And not to mention, you realize that Taz only appeared in 5 original Looney Tunes? 4 against Bugs, one against Daffy.
Really? I don't even remember the one against Daffy. I can probably, if I think hard enough, remember the ones against Bugs. I think the one that I always remember the most, because I've done, like, the stuff that stays with me is stuff that I've adopted as, like, my own, like, little phrases and stuff I've done with my friends. And it's something along, and I don't even remember the exact verbiage anymore, but it's something along the lines of, why for you blow, like, it was either why for you blow up Taz, or why for you drop something on Taz's foot.
The line is, why for you bury me in the cold, cold
Yes!
ground.
Why for you bury me in the cold, cold ground. I don't know why, but my friends and I used to say that to each other constantly.
I remember when the first Golden Collection of Looney Tunes came out on DVD, I was in high school, and I had a bunch of friends come over, and we're hanging out in my parents' basement, and we're snacking and playing pool, and I have that on in the background, and we're just watching it, and when that line came on, all of us, there was like maybe 7 teenagers just fell to the ground laughing hysterically at that line.
There's 2 things about that line that make that so funny. One is the repetition of the word cold. It's not, why did you bury me in the ground? It's, why did you bury me in the cold, cold ground? It's so overdramatic, and he says it so deadpan, you can't help but laugh. But the other thing is, Taz was not the most eloquent of creatures. He spoke, which is when I'm trying to tell my boss something about what an inmate said to me, is usually the voice that I'll do. Like, yeah, so one of the inmates came up to me and said, go. And strangely enough, she goes, yes, I understand. I
hate to say it, the one with Daffy Duck was always my favorite because it is such a perfect example of Daffy's character. Taz escapes from the zoo, and he's going after Daffy, but then Daffy's all getting the hell out of Dodge. But then he finds out that the zoo will offer a $5,000 reward for his capture, and he says, "My all-time favorite Daffy line: I may be a coward, but I'm a greedy little coward." Yeah,
I actually remember that now that you say it. The Midway cartoon is little Martian. Marvin accidentally plants his flag on the home of an irresistibly cute Martian. Oh, yeah, I remember this bit. It starts out as a dinky little thing.
Yeah.
And then slowly, and shortly thereafter, Marvin's back is turned around again, and it's a hulking beast.
Exactly. Yeah, I felt that they were overdoing the Marvin the Martian medium gag, or smaller gags in the first season. I'm glad that they found some other ones to do. Frankly, as much as I love them, I want to see Marvin go up against either Duck Dodgers or Bugs again. He is such a great villain for the characters, and it's like, yeah, I enjoy seeing him in the Midway cartoons. Obviously, my dad's tattoo is going to prove that he's one of my all-time favorite Chuck Jones creations, but I want to see him star. I mean, come on. I want to see him go up against Bugs and go, "You have made me very angry." Very angry indeed. I mean,
here's the thing. So Buck Rogers, at the time that these were contemporary, was in the cultural zeitgeist. I don't know if anyone knows what a Buck Rogers is anymore. And so I'm not disagreeing with you. I just think they need to update Marvin and the context around him. Duck Dodgers rhymes with Buck Rogers, and so it's a funny gag for Daffy. But I feel like if they're going to do Marvin in a classic sci-fi trope, it needs to be Star Trek, or it needs to be Star Wars, Aliens, something along those lines. Something that people in 2021 know and will get the joke when they make fun of it. If they do Duck Dodgers, no one's going to get it.
Yeah, they did something like that with Tiny Toons. I think it was Duck Trek. And it was Plucky playing Kirk, and Hampton was Spock, and they called him Spork. No, I also want to see it because I think I mentioned in the previous review, I actually wrote a blog, the top 100 greatest Looney Tunes shorts of all time. And I still stand by it, and I rated number 1 as Duck Dodgers of the 24th and a half century, and I still say, even though it is not my personal favorite one of all time is Duck Amuck, I say Duck Dodgers is the greatest short they ever did. And I remember having a few people breathing down my neck for not putting One Froggy Evening or What's Opera Doc. And I'm like, those are in the top 5, okay? I have my reasons.
Whatever. The funniest one is Easter eggs. I want an Easter egg. I want an Easter egg. I want an Easter egg. Oh, no! You know you've raised your kids right when it becomes a holiday tradition at Easter to watch that cartoon, and they demand it now. They're like, you got to put on Easter eggs. And then they just run around the house going, I want an Easter egg. I want an Ester egg.
Oh, I remember showing that to Andre. I think when we were first starting dating, because he hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, no, we're watching this on Easter.
Climate control. Wiley Coyote orders a weather control kit, but his chances of catching Roadrunner remain cloudy.
Okay.
So a couple things about this before we get into it. I had to explain to my kids what Acme was. And why Wiley Coyote was, because they actually, I think one of them might have asked me, why doesn't he order from Amazon? And I'm like, I'm
sorry, you broke me.
And I was like, well,
I think I just blew out the mic. Oh my god!
And I'm like, I get it.
Facebook.
And like, I get it. You were both born within 10 years of watching this, but they didn't have Amazon when this was a thing. And the company is Acme, and that's who he orders from. And my son wouldn't let it go. He was like, but if he ordered from Amazon, his shit would work. And I'm like, I get it, Jonas.
Tell him that Acme offers a better line of credit.
I think I might have actually gone with it. I'm like, well, he has an established account with Acme. It's hard to break those things.
Oh my god. Shit, Mark, all these years, you finally broke me.
See, having kids is fun. They pick up on stuff I would have never thought of. Anyway, I thought this was funny. This is the classic Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner shtick, and the gimmick revolves around this climate control machine. I laughed. I generally will laugh at the Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner side gags. Go ahead.
No, this was I think one of my favorites. This and Taziator were probably the two that I laughed the hardest at. Again, it's great to see Wile E. Coyote back in his element, back to ordering Acme, back to dealing with a corgi who's insisting on being on the show tonight. Give that to me. Sorry, while I talk to you, I'm playing fetch.
Okay.
I have to multitask. No, this was... It was really good, but I don't think I could say anything that could possibly top how you just made me lose my goddamn mind.
All right, moving on. Leprechaun is the next one. Bugs Bunny is looking for Hawaii, but finds Ireland and an angry leprechaun instead. This was funny. This was, the Leprechaun and Bugs Bunny going at one another, and it's sort of the typical Bugs Bunny stuff here. I remember laughing at this one pretty hard, though, and I enjoyed the Leprechaun character.
I did too. Not to mention they did a really great homage to a classic Porky Pig cartoon called Wearing of the Grin. You might remember that one where Porky gets accosted by two leprechauns who are also convinced that he's there to steal the pot of gold. We get a sequence where I sentence you to the wearing of the green shoes.
Yeah, he's dancing a jig and he can't get the shoes off.
And he ends up in a very surreal-like landscape. Similar kind of thing happens here. So, obviously, I think this cartoon was meant to homage that one, and it's a classic. So, I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool that they're going back to that. That's great.
The flag won't stay straight. This one, it was a pretty simple gag. Marvin's flag keeps falling over and losing its balance, whatever. It was whatever. The next one...
It's also in... That was kind of fun because when he straightens it, all of a sudden the background... There's an old Pink Panther cartoon where they did this, where he sees a painting on the wall, and when he tries to adjust it, the house that he's in actually tilts. So it's like you have to tilt the painting in order for reality to stay up. So it reminded me a lot of that.
Brave New Home. Hey, we just did this with the Mickey Mouse cartoons. In fact, my son made that observation. So Porky Pig's new home has all the modern amenities anyone could hope for, including a computerized assistant, but the voice recognition software could use an update. So my son's watching this. We're both laughing at this cartoon, but my son keeps saying, like, we did this already. Like, I think he's such a little me. He's like, we did this already. It was in the Mickey Mouse cartoons. Remember that? Remember how the house was torturing Mickey Mouse? Remember? They did it already. And I'm like, all right, Jonas, we got it. Like,
well,
same
okay,
gag.
So there is a classic cartoon called Designed for Leaving that you can show Joan. I always wait. Is it Jonah or Jonas?
My name is Jonas.
Jonas.
Like the Weezer song.
For some reason, I keep wanting to say Jonah, and I don't know why.
Everyone does. And like he wasn't named after that band. He's named after the good band.
Good to know. Okay, show Jonas Designed for Leaving. It's a classic cartoon where Elmer Fudd gets a free home makeover, compliments of Daffy Duck and his traveling salesman company, for a complete push-button home. It is a precursor to the whole smart house technology kind of thing, and it's great because we've seen these kind of cartoons before where it's like, welcome to the house of the future, press a button, the laundry starts, press a button here, you get a maid, press a button here, you get press a button here, you get a Diet Coke. So this kind of stuff has been done before, and honestly, I was thinking more Designed for Leaving than the Mickey Mouse short. For the record, they're both done in completely different ways. We have different elements for both on why the things go wrong. It's not the same story.
No, it's not. In the Mickey Mouse one, the house was torturing them in different ways. In the case of Mickey Mouse specifically, we had a fairly lengthy discussion about this when we talked about it. The house was overly pleasing to the point where Mickey felt claustrophobic and all of that. In this particular case, it's the voice recognition software doesn't understand Porky. And Porky can't, and because of Porky stammering, he can't get out what he needs to say fast enough for the voice recognition to do the right thing. Or it misunderstands him entirely. So, for example, Porky says, make me a sandwich, at which point he gets two huge pieces of bread, and he sprinkles mustard on Porky, and turns Porky into an actual sandwich, and shit like that happens. I thought it was funny.
And again, this is something that... Thank you, Eddie. This is something that could only happen to Porky with his speech impediment. I mean, let's face it, they're not going to do it with Speedy Gonzales because,
You're never going to see Speedy Gonzales or Pepe Le Pew. Those characters are gone.
I love Pepe Le Pew. We've talked about... Yeah, I know. Wasn't the title of our last podcast, we debate the merits of rapist skunks and racist mice?
That is correct.
Okay, yeah, let's not go through that again. But still, yeah, it's not like they could really get away with anyone else who has speech impediments or accents from the Looney Tunes. So Porky was the only one this joke works for, and it was pretty funny.
I think somebody also... I know we talked about it at length. We talked about it in the chat, the absence of guns. Cannons, bombs, dynamite, yes. Sharp objects, absolutely. No guns. And I don't want to relitigate that particular argument. But I think my wife might have passed through the room, and at one point, or one of my kids noticed that at one point Elmer Fudd was chasing Bugs Bunny, and he had like a fork and knife in hand, and he was, and he was chasing after Bugs Bunny, and I think somebody said out loud, they were like, "Well, why does he get to have a fork and knife and chase Bugs Bunny, but not have a gun?" And I'm like, 2021, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, of course, there's a later cartoon we'll get to where they actually kind of answer that. And frankly, I think it was the best way possible that HBO Max could have given one hell of a middle finger to the complainers.
I enjoy when Daffy does sort of the noir stories. There's a great one. It's one of my favorites. I'm wild and crazy. I'm guilty, Jesus. I'm guilty of being crazy for you, sweetheart. I love that cartoon. So Daffy is a private detective, and he's hired to do a case, whatever. And the whole time he's being hit on by this lady duck, and at the end of it, he's like, "So you are innocent?" And she goes, "No, I'm guilty." He's like,
yeah.
"What?" I'm guilty of being crazy for you. And he, and it ends with him in a shotgun wedding. He's like chained to her or whatever.
Sort of. It ends with him running through the wall, and then she runs through the wall after him, and the silhouettes they leave are of a bride and groom.
Right. Yeah. So I enjoy Detective Daffy, and this was one of those, the case of Porky's Pants. Detective Daffy Duck takes on the case of Porky's missing pants. And this was actually kind of an ode to the Dick Tracy one, too. Because the end of the Dick Tracy one... So the whole premise of the Dick Tracy one is he's reading Dick Tracy comics and he gets knocked out. And so he starts to daydream about being Dick Tracy, or Duck Tracy in this case.
Yeah, that is the only thing that really made me mad about this. I'm like, again, going back to what you were saying about Buck Rogers, Duck Dodgers, no one's going to get it. No one today is going to get who the hell Dick Tracy is, but someone who has grown up watching cartoons and gets the reference is sitting there going, you had an opportunity to bring back Detective Duck Tracy and you failed?
Yeah, well, like I said, they just made him a regular PI, but they did the ode to the Dick Tracy bit where he's naming all the Dick Tracy rogues galleries, and so he's like, Neon Noodle, Hammerhead, and he does the same thing, only they're pants in this case. Like,
yeah.
A variety of different garments start him harassing Daffy.
Yeah, again, it's obvious what they're making fun of and what they're homaging, but I was really upset excuse me, that we didn't get one name drop of Duck Tracy.
Fully vetted. Tweety's trip to the veterinarian office gives Sylvester the perfect opportunity for a lunchtime treat. I barely remember this one. What'd you think of it?
I hate to say it, I barely remember it myself.
Terrific. Moving on. There were definitely I didn't have the situation I had with some of these ones that we talked about in the past, where towards the end they started to lose me, and I was like looking at my phone, so I missed stuff. I watched this on a Friday night with my kids, and I was just getting tired by the second half of this. But I enjoyed what I saw, but I can definitely remember like towards the end, like starting to look off into space because I was getting really tired.
Well, the other problem with the first season is that, I hate to admit it, but after a while, a lot of the cartoons just sort of started to blend together. Yeah. I remember at the end of season 1A, there's at least 2 or 3 Wiley Coyote cartoons that are pretty funny, but it had been like 3 or 4 days since I had watched them, and you were saying, what do you think about this one? I'm sitting there going, I can't remember the difference between any of the cartoons, because they're all the same gag. It's Wiley Coyote set to trap fails. There wasn't really anything to differentiate between the episodes.
Right. And I think that's the other issue we get to this, is that like when you're watching them in the moment, they're funny, but as you said, like they start to blend together, and then we try to, think back to them, you're like, I remembered laughing. Eradicator. Bugs Bunny must outsmart a new technological foe. What do you remember about this one?
This one actually has one of my favorite Bugs Bunny breakdowns. This was great, with him just realizing that he's literally running out of ways to subdue.
Oh, that's right. This is Robo Elmer Fudd.
Yes. Okay.
Right, and he's like, I've done everything to him. I've done all the things, and nothing's working. And and he like has a meltdown.
Yeah, it's like, if I just like run out of tricks, am I literally at the end of my rope? And then what ends up working is the simplest "your shoes are untied" gag.
But I'm not. Wait, no. Planet split in two. Marvin accidentally breaks a planet in two by planting his flag. I feel like they did that one already, but okay.
It's very similar in tone to the flag not standing up, but admittedly, it is kind of funny when the ground starts cracking like crazy and you see Marvin trying to stop the crack. I mean, obviously, it's very reminiscent. Well, it's, oh my God, reminiscent of blah. It has been done so many times in so many cartoons. The one that I'm thinking of immediately is the opening scene from Ice Age with Scrat the Squirrel.
Yeah.
I mean, it has been done, but you know what? It's a funny gag.
17C is Sales Duck. Elmer Fudd is ready for bed, but persistent salesman Daffy Duck stands in the way of a good night's rest. Daffy Duck as a salesman is always very funny. And, it's an odd pairing, but it works on the occasion that they do it, where they put Elmer Fudd and Daffy together.
As weird as it sounds, this is the one that I felt most, I don't want to say sitcom-y, but it felt the most stand-up-y. This is the kind of short that I would see Abbott Costello or Monty Python or something like that doing for a comedy bid at a variety show. Mm-hmm. And that's not a bad thing. This is a very funny short with a really good punchline.
What's the punchline again?
The thing to help him sleep.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, because he's keeping Elmer up, and finally, because the whole time he's Daffy can't get a word in edgewise about the product he's selling, or he's just burying the lead. Take your pick. And Elmer's going nuts, and finally says, "But it's something to help you sleep." And Elmer realizes that's actually something I do need. So.
Pitcher Porky. Benchwarmer Porky Pig finally gets a chance to shine on the pitching mound. With the game on the line, he needs all of the help he can get, even if it's from Daffy Duck. Oh, this is funny. So he immediately breaks his arm as soon as he gets put in the game. And now he can't pitch because he has a broken arm. And Daffy's like, "I'll do it for you." And so, this is another, body gag where he hides in Porky's clothes and he pitches the ball. And I think it's a variety of different. Have you ever seen the Bugs Bunny one where it's Bugs Bunny versus the Goons, and Bugs Bunny plays all the bases?
They actually use the same team name, the Gas House Gorillas.
And so a lot of that is Bugs Bunny throwing a variety of different gag pitches. The slow ball, and the slow ball literally just barely gets over the plate.
I wrote an article on the three studios' different take on baseball. Disney's How to Play Baseball with Goofy. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a classic baseball short from Tex Avery, and then, of course, Baseball Bugs. And I actually wrote the appeal and how they and the idea of what each one focused on.
So they do that here, and Porky Pig's broken arm looks like an uneaten piece of spaghetti, the entire short. But it all works out, and Daffy Duck helps him win the game. All right, they don't have a summation for Cherry Picker. What was Cherry Picker again?
I think that's the one I mentioned. It's Sylvester trying to eat Tweety, and it's built up almost the same way as the previous one with your shoes are untied, and it's the dynamite.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the end of it. It has to do with the construction equipment, and Tweety says something about that's why you always wear a helmet, Putty Tat. Again, it's not bad, but it doesn't really stand out that much because so much of the animation is identical to the previous Sylvester and Tweety short. And that's something these writers really got to be careful about, and I'm not going to lie, I'm willing to bet that some of this is simply we were running out of time, so we decided to reuse some animation and just play off a new gag.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm in that situation, I would probably do the same. And on times, it can be okay, but you got to really be careful on that sort of thing.
Duck, Duck, Boom. Elmer Fudd sets the sights on Daffy Duck, but who's hunting whom?
This is the one I mentioned with the giant middle finger, because Elmer actually says guns are so barbaric. And instead, he pulls out a loaf of bread, which is holding a bomb inside it. And I just remember watching it, I was like, that's one of those moments where you just kind of pause the episode and you're just like, you knew what you were doing when you wrote that joke.
Yeah.
You knew exactly who that was aimed at.
I barely remember this, but I do remember laughing at it. Postalgeist, 19A. Daffy Duck and Porky Pig deliver packages to a haunted manor. So the gag here, if I remember correctly, is the ghosts are trying to stop them from delivering the package. Turns out the package is for the ghost.
Interestingly enough, because I mentioned Tiny Toons earlier, this one plays off of another couple of Tiny Toons shorts where Daffy and Porky ended up in haunted locations by accident. And this really felt like that because, oh my God, I just turned into Porky Pig. Honestly, Daffy and Porky here feel more like Plucky and Hampton than they do their original counterparts.
Do you remember what the short for Anvil was?
No.
Great. 19C, Fudd's Bunny. Elmer Fudd plans to disguise himself as a bunny to lure Bugs Bunny out of his hole. Doesn't quite go as planned. This was funny. I laughed a lot at this. Elmer Fudd in the bunny costume, and they can't get out of it, and it was amusing, from what I recall.
I call this one, wow, somebody was a fan of Elmira Duff from Tiny Toons. Because that's obvious. Oh, so Elmer takes the form, or, disguises himself as a rabbit, And Bugs, to get even with him, disguises himself as a little girl who's just crazy about bunnies.
Oh, right.
And I watch it going, it's Elmira. I mean, obviously the voice isn't the same. You're not going to bring in Cree Summer, but it's a freaking modern-day Elmira, without question.
All right, we are starting to wrap here. We have Shoe Shenanigans. Elmer Fudd visits Daffy Duck for a quick shoe shine. Yeah, I started fading here. Well, I don't remember this one.
The thing I remember most about this one was that Elmer Fudd was dressed in his classic costume before he was really defined as Elmer and more seen as a character called Egghead, with the fedora and the green coat and the yellow scarf. That's what Egghead was commonly dressed as. So, again, nice little homage to the early animation on there. I kind of like that.
Multiply and Conquer. This one cracked me up.
This was hilarious.
Wiley Coyote attempts catching Roadrunner by cloning himself. Okay, Roadrunner Wiley Coyote silently communicating with the other coyotes and like pointing and everything. Like, I laughed my ass off at this.
I absolutely loved it. I loved Roadrunner's reaction when he actually falls into the trap. And he's just kind of got this perplexed look on his face like, what just happened? This is how you do a modern Wile E. Coyote Roadrunner cartoon without overly rehashing what we've already seen before. This was really smart writing, and I loved it.
Yeah. Last episode, we're almost at the last episode. 20C, Porky Pig. Porky is running late for a movie night, but finding a parking spot is easier said than done. I don't remember this one at all.
Simpsons did this joke first.
Okay.
He's unable to find a parking spot. He goes all over town. He finally finds one, and guess what? It's in front of his house.
Right. I did remember that. Now that you said it, I remember the punchline. But I think, yeah, I was starting to lose steam at this point. Okay.
Sorry,
I woke up.
If I don't bring up that the Simpsons reference did it, if I don't bring up the Simpsons reference, Robert's going to be very disappointed in me.
So the last two shorts, these I was awake for. Shell-shocked, Bugs Bunny races, and you talked about like the rogues gallery of various side characters and whatnot. One of my favorite ones is Cecil Turtle. The Cecil Bugs Bunny stuff, the tortoise and the hare bits, are some of the funniest things I've ever seen. And so Bugs Bunny races against Cecil Turtle for the title of fastest thing in New York City. And this was a classic homage to the previous series of Bugs Bunny and Cecil. Cecil always gets them. It's either he's got a jetpack or it's multiple turtles all disguising themselves as Cecil because Bugs Bunny can't tell the difference between one turtle to the next, that sort of thing. It's always the same bit, but they change it up enough to where it's funny and interesting, and that was what they did here.
Yeah, again, when I saw Cecil Turtle come in, I was like, yes, more of this.
Yeah.
Again, I want to see more of these classic characters come back, and Cecil has always been such a good foil for Bugs.
Yeah, that's one thing I like. The Family Guy kind of made a joke about how wouldn't it be funny to see Bugs Bunny get it in the end? But Bugs Bunny absolutely has lost on a few occasions. There's one I'm thinking of in particular where it ends with him in prison, and he's just tapping at the rock, and Daffy too. Occasionally they die in these things.
Yeah, no, I know which one you're talking about. It's the one where he goes, and could it be that I carried this thing too far? And he ends up going, it could be. That is such a great cartoon. I love that one.
The most infamous bit with Daffy, that's great, Doc. They want more. He was like, yeah, I know, but I can only do it once as he floats up to heaven. A very old one with Daffy was him versus the caveman, where...
Yes.
Yeah, where the final gag is he has them go on this long journey to find this giant duck, and it's a giant inflatable duck, and so he stabs at it, it blows up, and they all three go to heaven.
Yeah, maybe that wasn't such a hot idea after all.
Good night, everybody. All right, the Daffy Dentist. The only thing more painful than Porky Pig's sore tooth is a visit to Dentist Daffy. Gosh, they narrowly avoided being gross with this one.
Narrowly, but It's okay, but it's a little on the predictable side. We all know exactly where it's going to go and how it's going to wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
So, not to mention, didn't they do this joke earlier with the insurance?
A bit, yeah.
Yeah. So.
All right, so overall, I think these are getting better. They're doing more with different characters. I feel like after they dropped the first season and it was like, okay, we whet everyone's appetite for this. We got everyone, reinterested in new Looney Tunes. And now, people are they're going to stay with us or they're going to leave, but we're just going to continue to do our thing. And and like I said, I feel like I laughed more with this set of cartoons than I did with the previous set. So I think the series is getting better, and I'm looking forward to either season 1D or season 2A. I don't know where we're going with this crazy lettering system, but I'm curious to see what they do next. I'll give you the final word.
I agree. We're seeing things that we wanted to see more. We're seeing a larger variety of characters. We're seeing a callback to some more of our classic favorite cartoons. We're seeing that they've, thank God, stayed away from the overly gross stuff. They're avoiding a bit of the repetition that was getting old in the previous ones. We mentioned when we reviewed the first one, we said they're on the right track. This one shows, yes, we were correct. This is improvement. This is good. If they keep going in this direction, the next season is going to be kick-ass.
Yep. Alrighty, that wraps us up for this episode of TV Party Tonight. Alexis, Hejna, and I reviewed The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, issue 6 through 8, and we reviewed part 4 of the series, the final part. Myself and Jesse Starcher reviewed Labyrinth, Welcome to the Absurd Circus. Me and the Podsman reviewed WWE Superstar Spectacle. That's all in the archives. You can go check that out and listen to it. Next week, Cole Marentet is going to join me to review All Hell Megatron. Damn You Hollywood returns. We'll be debuting a new bit on the show. It's basically a repackaged old bit, but if you haven't heard it, it'll be new to you. We're doing away with the money because there's no money in movies right now, but we'll be doing it in the news segment, so look for that. The Podsman and I will be reviewing the Royal Rumble. We're going to speaking of left turns at Albuquerque, we'll be reviewing the new Weezer album, Okay Human, on the Metal Hammer of Doom. And then finally, Chris Bailey and I will be looking at the next named Dynamite special, AEW Dynamite Beach Break. Not Beach Bash, Beach Break. Featuring the nuptials of one Penelope Ford and Kip Sabian, the handsome Kip Sabian. And Miro will be there as well, because he's the best man, don't you know? All right, that's what's going on with me. What's going on with... Oh, and check out Robert and I doing our... this Saturday night, Caleb Plant is fighting on Fox again. We're going to do commentary for his fight versus Caleb Truax. Now, what's going on in your world?
Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. Well, we did get a travel update today, folks, and unfortunately, Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City has moved back. We were originally going to be there in April. They have decided to move it to August. Now, the good news is that that's not the same weekend as MegaCon in Orlando, so knock on wood, if the schedule doesn't change, we will still be able to do both shows, and I am looking forward to that. Again, keep looking at our Facebook, Instagram, and Underdress Twitter. We will be announcing any other schedule changes as they come up. Now,
right.
then, in the meantime, Dude, don't interrupt my plug.
I thought you were done. Sorry.
I took a breath.
Well, stop breathing.
I thought that's what you usually say to the other podsmen.
I treat you all the same.
Fair enough. In the meantime, we're still uploading new products to our stores on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon, including some lovely romantic gifts for your favorite geeky Valentine. You can still order in time to ship out for everyone's favorite or not so favorite holiday, depending on how you view that sort of thing. There. Now I'm done.
Are you sure?
Yes.
Terrific. All right, folks. Thanks once again for joining us here on TV Party Tonight. For Alexis, Hejna, I'm Mark Radulich. Be well, be safe, and behave.